What's up, Cowboys Nation? So, looks like detail has become the word of the day. Now, this morning I hopped on here and I shared a few thoughts about the game yesterday that happened between the Cowboys and the Ravens. I shared some numbers I was looking at, and I said that tonight we would get into the sound coming out today, the scheduled press conference with Mike McCarthy, as well as whatever player interviews came out of the locker room. Now, what I did not anticipate was that this conversation about accountability and professionalism and doing the work would somehow become the story. But that is absolutely what happened. If you listen to the sound bites that are coming from inside the building for the Cowboys, you would think that they actually believe if they can solve these issues with accountability and people paying attention to detail, that it'll solve the on-field issues. Now, those on-field issues include several things that I think a lot of people at first were blaming on personnel and play calling and scheme and so on and so forth, and for good reason. So we've seen things like issues with the running backs, not only not getting enough yards, but honestly not even getting enough attempts. We saw the Cowboys have issues yesterday with the passing game that I don't think anybody predicted they would have against the Baltimore Ravens. And on the defensive side, it's just a whole array of issues. And yes, people knew the Baltimore Ravens were going to run the ball, but I don't think people anticipated that they would get a whole 8 yards per carry before even being touched by a Cowboys defensive player. So there's a lot going on, yet somehow today, over the course of the day, the conversation has become about accountability, attention to detail, doing the work, so on and so forth. And on top of all that, it seems like people are a lot more split on this CeeDee Lamb situation than I thought they would be. But I'm actually really glad that they are. And I'm going to explain why I'm glad on the other side of this clip. So let me get a sip of water. We're going to play this clip, and then we'll come back and have a more full conversation, not only about what Jordan Lewis said, but also about what Mike McCarthy said and some of the post-game sound we got from yesterday.
At the end of the day, this is about us stopping people. That's just what it is. We got to be credible and accountable every single play, and that's 60 minutes of football. It don't matter who we play. We got to go out there and be detailed in the plays. It don't matter who we play in this NFL. If we're not doing that, anybody can beat us.
You said people are gunning for you. Why?
We're not detailed.
Because they think you're vulnerable?
We're not detailed in our work. You can take advantage of details. So that's how you win in this league. Everybody's good in this league. It's the details that make you different.
Oh no, it did it wrong. I almost had it, guys. I almost had a perfect transition. Anyway, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet. And as stated in the intro, yes, tonight we are talking about the sound that is coming out of the building from Mike McCarthy, I know we're going to listen to him. We're going to listen to Jay Lou. We're going to listen to part of Dak's post-game from yesterday. And I think there's some sound from Micah Parsons we might get into, time pending. So how are y'all? I'm checking out the comments. Sometimes there are people already here, like Clement, who was not here. But yeah, if you're watching on Twitter, come on over to YouTube to make sure I can see your comments. Sometimes people post stuff on Twitter that I never see. So just find me on YouTube, search for Bitches Love Sports, and we'll go from there. All right. So let's talk about what's going on with these player interviews that have come out today. So if you're not up to speed on that, essentially Cowboys lost to the Ravens yesterday, 28-25, but the score definitely does not represent how it felt like that game went. Um, Clement said he's here, and thanks for hitting the like button. So the 28-25 score was not, I would say, an accurate representation of how that game actually went, because essentially a very late game comeback is what led the Cowboys to getting up to 25 points. Before that, it looked like it was going to be another blowout. Before that, it looked like the score might actually end up being similar to what it was against the Saints. But I mean, it depends on what side of the fence you're on when it comes to how to look at it. There are some people who say, hey, the Cowboys got it together. They actually have some momentum to take with them into this game on Thursday against the Giants. Then there are some people who say, well, actually, the Baltimore Ravens have been having trouble closing games, so we shouldn't really read too much into this. They were going to mess that up somehow anyway. So either way, there's been a lot of controversy, not only related to the game, but also this pattern that a lot of people feel they've been seeing since the Green Bay game that happened during the playoffs. So we're hearing everything from play calling to personnel to coaching being the issue. And honestly, last night and this morning, I was preparing more to talk about that, right? Because and I guess I can go into it for a second, but I'm not the film chick. I'm just getting into watching film. But I'll say on the offensive side of the ball, one of the biggest issues a lot of people have is with the run game. And the run game is really the issue on both sides of the ball. It's like, and that's actually going back, that is the issue that a lot of people are pointing to whenever they talk about the reminders of the Green Bay game. It's not the specifics, it's this, for some reason, repeated pattern of we cannot run the ball or stop the run. And it's like, how successful can you really expect a team to be if you can't run the ball or stop the run? Essentially is what the issue is. So when it comes to the run game, I'll go over some of the numbers that I shared this morning in the video. So one of the things that I mentioned was coming into this season, there were some statistics collected about Dak Prescott's success and how it related to the Cowboys run game. And what they found was actually, let me see if I can pull that up. Hold on, where's my phone? Because I want to give y'all the exact numbers. Where the hell did I put my phone? I can't find my phone, y'all. All right. Well, anyway, um, when it came to the number of rushing attempts, I remember it was 100 plus carries led to a winning record for Dak Prescott, and anything less than that led to a losing record for him. And the disparity was like really big. And then when it came to, wait, no, not 100 plus carries. That's a lot. It was 30 or more carries in the run game, 100 plus yards. So if they had 30 or more carries and 100 or more yards, that led to a winning record for Dak Prescott. But when he didn't have those numbers, or when the run game didn't have those numbers, I should say, he had a losing record. And so I was looking at that and saying to myself, okay, if we know that, if that's documented, it's on paper, then why are the Dallas Cowboys not putting a little bit more effort into at least getting the number of attempts? I know the number of yards will depend on a variety of factors, including who you're playing against, but they only got 16 carries yesterday against the Ravens. And yes, a lot of people will point to the fact that they were losing, but I mean, they were struggling with the passing game as well. Nothing was really going that well on the offensive side of the ball. And it was weird because a lot of people thought that the passing game would do really well against the Ravens. Before yesterday, they were, I think, pretty much last in the league when it came to defending against the pass. And I want to say they're 14th worst against explosive plays. So a lot of people were like, hey, passing the ball, explosive plays. Yes, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb can do that. And then all of a sudden they show up with this way different coverage than what they've shown for the rest of the season. And the Cowboys just didn't seem to have a reliable answer for that. Yes, they found a few answers. We saw some impressive performances from people who we don't normally really hear from. But in terms of finding an answer that was going to get them the win, nah, it didn't really happen. It didn't really happen. So I'm going to read some of y'all's comments, and then we're going to talk about Dak Prescott's press conference yesterday and how that related to a lot of the headlines we're seeing from today. So Clement says, I'm over these players' interviews already. Oh no. I know that the NFL obligates the players to show after game and next day. The game wasn't close as the final score indicates. I have a comment on that. Because what you just said, in my mind at least, relates to something that Mike McCarthy said. So I'm gonna put a pin in that one, Clement. He follows up and says, Dallas is a soft team in that if you are able to run the ball at the interior, you will have success. And then you have QBs like Lamar Jackson that beats you with outside zone runs. Yikes. I hate hearing that word soft used to describe them. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just hate to hear it. Like, I don't know. For some reason, soft sounds like such a much more rude way to describe the issue than to say they're having problems on defense or they don't seem, even to say they don't seem tough enough, just seems better than to call them soft. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. Comment goes on, Cowboys can't run the ball. We're very basic, no creativity. Got it. Chris says, let's see what this is. I don't know about soft, but they are definitely undisciplined. Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Once again, I'm not saying that soft is wrong. I just don't like to hear it. And undisciplined, that aligns with what I'm seeing. Willie says, hey Jazz, defense can't stop you. And CeeDee Lamb was wrong for showing up his quarterback. Is that your interpretation of what happened? So many people seem to have a different interpretation of what they saw from CeeDee Lamb. And we're going to get into that in a second. I completely understand why CeeDee Lamb was not in the locker room last night or today. A lot of people weren't in the locker room today. I completely understand why he wasn't there. But I wish I could hear his story. But when I think about him sharing his side of the story, it reminds me of why he wasn't there. Because there are a lot of people who wouldn't have believed him anyway. It would have been him putting himself in a situation of stress just for people to basically walk away, believe in what they want to believe anyway. So, yeah, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I completely understand why he decided to skip out on that. Like if you have the option and you know it's not going to lead to anything good, then why would you? I mean, are we not still on this wave of protecting your peace, or does that not apply to people like CeeDee Lamb? Y'all can tell me in the comments. Somebody else says CD got to grow up. Okay. Oh, let me finish reading this from Willie. He said he needs to grow up. They can't run the ball, which puts all the pressure on Dak, which is unfair to him. Agreed. Agreed on that. And Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast. What's up? I was a guest on this podcast, by the way, in case y'all missed it. I was a guest on this podcast before the Ravens game. What day was it last week? Was that a Tuesday? I don't remember. Time flies. But I was a guest on this podcast. So if you want to hear more good football talk, definitely check them out. He said, good game. Oh, such good sportsmanship. And appreciate you coming on the pod last week. Good game. That's very nice of you because you definitely are within your rights to roast my favorite team right now. And you didn't. So very classy of you. Much appreciated. All right. So yesterday, not a blowout loss, but it definitely felt like one. Felt like a lot of bad habits were being more ingrained than being taken care of. So let's start with Dak's press conference. I'm not going to play Mike McCarthy's press conference from yesterday, just because I feel like his press conference from today was more significant. But I'm going to play Dak's. I'm going to skip through it a little bit. And guys, I apologize in advance. I don't have sound bites, like the timestamps written down. So we're just going to skip through and go through this together. No, the loss does not have me forgetting when I came on. Time flies. Willie says he appreciates Dak for calling out CD. I didn't look at it that way. Okay, let me pull this up so we can get to the bottom of this.
Clarence Hill, All City, Dallas. Let's talk about the slow starts. I know you guys finish fast, but how frustrating is it to continue to start slow?
Yeah, very frustrating, especially when you're playing a quarterback like that on that side, an offense that powerful, explosive. You just can't do it. Honestly, just talking to some of the defensive guys, we got to look in the mirror, us offense first, and we got to help them. I mean, I know they're standard, and they don't want to allow 28 points, but 28 points against an MVP player, an offense like that, it's a game that we've got to go score 30 in. We know it. We didn't do it. Started late. That's the biggest part of it. The penalties, some errors, I guess you can say, just whether it be alignment, whether it be assignment, we've got to be cleaner. we've got to lock in and be more focused on our job and take accountability every position and grow.
More in sync when you're 2 minute.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's plays that we've ran, from first day, from the first install. That's what you always say. 2 minutes install one plays that the first day all the way to the last, you've had the most reps at them. That could be potentially it. So maybe we've got to lessen the volume. Who knows? But us as players, we've got to be more professional and understand our jobs, understand where we're supposed to be, and do that time and time again.
All right, so I'm gonna pause right there real quick. I didn't even mean to let it play that long. So already from the beginning, they're asking him about what's happening on the field, but he's already talking about professionalism and accountability a lot more than he's talking about what actually happened situationally on the field. And this is something that ends up being repeated throughout his press conference. There's actually a section where they ask him about some stuff that happened on the field, and he outright says, "Hey, I don't know. I got to watch the film, or if I had the answers, we'd be better," and things like that. So I just thought it was interesting that he had so much to say about the mentality and the approach of the Cowboys, and not as much to say about what was actually happening on the field. And what that tells me, or what that suggests to me, I should say, is that even as the game was going on, they already started to look at attitudes and where guys' mental states were as the issues. Because I feel like that's the only way you come into a press conference like this, and the most immediate answers that you have are about professionalism and accountability. But let's keep going.
And keep our focus.
Dak, Todd Archer with ESPN, you said be more professional. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, but by knowing where you're supposed to be, knowing your reads, knowing where you're supposed to line up, knowing your routes, knowing your route adjustments versus certain coverages. Every part of what being a professional is, it's doing your job and being prepared for every part of the job, however it may come. So time away from the building to being in the building, just being a pro and understanding that you can only get so many practice reps, but you can watch the film, you can do all these other things that will help make up for it. And
So I'm pausing it because I'm going to rewind, because this is the part where some people thought he started talking about CD in reference to time away from the building and, things that people should be doing in order to improve personally, right? Now, I don't know for sure if that's who he was referring to, or if that's the only person that he was referring to. But shortly after making this statement, he does make reference to a trip to the red zone that would have made a difference in the game.
this, every part of what being a professional is, it's doing your job and being prepared for every part of the job, however it may come. So time away from the building to being in the building, just being a pro and understanding that you can only get so many practice reps, but you can watch the film, you can do all these other things that will help make up for it. And we just got to be more focused. And that's what, to me, on offense, where we haven't been as focused as we should, had a lot of or a few mental errors that were crucial, I guess you could say, just the timing wise. And to me, it just goes into being professional and understanding what you got to do.
Sadis of The Athletic. Deck, with body language and CD's body language, how do you balance the passion that he shows versus making sure like he doesn't get too down either on himself or on the offense as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, reading body language, I'm not really into it. I'm just into making sure he doesn't get down on himself. The body language, whether it's good, it's bad, it's irrelevant. It's where his mind is. And so he's going to be disappointed when you're passionate, when you expect a lot from yourself, you're going to be that way. So for me, it's about just letting him know, hey, next play, wipe it clean. Who cares what happened when you have an opportunity to go fix it this next play or make a better play. So if you're sitting in that, dwelling on that, your mind's not in the right place to move forward. So for me, it's about just always talking to not only him, but the other guys of, don't dwell. You don't have time to dwell. You look at the way that game ended, and I feel like if we don't dwell in different places on offense, it's a different game, obviously. And who knows, a 2-point conversion away from a tie game and a red zone trip away from a different ending to that game. So that's my point, is you can't dwell. Things happen fast in this league, and you always have an opportunity. You always have a chance, as long as there's times and as long as you have the ball.
So that was a part where some people call it calling out CD. Some people say he's just acknowledging that it could have been a different game. I think he was calling out CD, but I don't think he was doing it from an antagonistic place, honestly. Because he recognizes, one of the first things that he says is that he's more concerned about where his mind is than his body language, and he talks about making sure that CD doesn't get down on himself. I can talk, y'all, I promise. So he talks about making sure that CD doesn't get down on himself, things like that. So there were actually a few people who said it doesn't seem like CD is upset with other people. It seems like he's frustrated with himself, which we have to think about the fact that it wasn't just one moment that he was upset about. It was that game. There might have been frustration that carried over from the Saints game that he was still dealing with. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't process those things and get past them. I'm just saying there's a difference between having that type of frustration and lashing out at your teammates. Now, if you want to say, okay, he should be able to process those things quicker and maintain control or be a little bit more composed, okay, that's your opinion. You're entitled to believe that. You're entitled to feel that way. But I don't necessarily think that he was saying anything negative to or about his teammates. And I think it's up to them, honestly, to determine if it's a problem. Um, I mean, saying things like CeeDee Lamb needs to grow up, I think is inferring things that we don't necessarily have facts about. Because if he's down on himself and he's upset and he's frustrated about his own performance or about things that are influencing his performance, which could be anything. He could have been frustrated about the play calling. He could have been frustrated about the refs because, like, let's be real. It did look like the refs were letting a lot of things slide. A lot of people noticed that the Baltimore Ravens defense was a lot more sticky yesterday. And I'm not saying that this is the reason that they won the game. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is that if you're a receiver and you feel like people are pushing you or pulling you or holding you in ways that are illegal, and you have to fight through it, not only with one person, but three people, and it seems like you cannot get a flag for anything in the world. So you're not getting the flag, you're not getting the ball, you're not getting the yards, everything's just going wrong. I can see you being upset. As a matter of fact, it would have been concerning if he weren't upset. You know what I'm saying? So he got upset, and that's how he chose to show it. So if you feel like he needs to grow up, you don't like how he puts his emotions on display, that's your opinion. And stuff like that is why I understand why he did not want to talk to the media yesterday or today, or might not want to talk to the media all week, right? Because I think there are some people who just get to a point where it's like, okay, I did what I had to do in the moment, and I really don't feel like hearing everybody's opinions on it. I'm either going to change or I'm not. I don't need to have the entire Cowboys fan base lecturing me via social media, which they're doing anyway. Let me get to some of y'all's comments, and then we'll go. I don't even know if I need to listen to the rest of Dak's press conference for this, because there are some players that I want to listen to. Let me scroll up, because now y'all are talking about who picked us to beat the Ravens, which honestly, to answer the question based off just off memory, who picked the Cowboys to beat the Ravens before the season started, I can't think of anybody who did. I think the reason that people started picking the Cowboys over the Ravens was because the Ravens had such a rough start, which, once again, I will reiterate, was not as rough of a start as their record suggested. They were 0-2, yes, but those games were close. Those games were lost by a possession. One game was lost by a field goal. One game was lost by a touchdown and an extra point. And they were up in both those games, dominating, and then lost it in the fourth quarter. And I even said this. I said, I think I might have mentioned on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, when they were talking about when the question was posed, what is the scariest thing about the Baltimore Ravens? Was the answer for a lot of people was Lamar Jackson, right? But I said, to me, the scariest thing about the Baltimore Ravens was the fact that they were actually a good team. They were a really good team that was just having trouble closing games. And now that it bit them in the ass twice, they were definitely going to make it a point to close out this one. And to know that a team that was capable of doing that was now going to be hyper focused on doing that, to me, was the scariest thing. So, did I think the game was going to go how it went? I absolutely did not. But did I kind of anticipate that they would put up a little bit different of a fight against the Cowboys than they had against their previous opponents? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, back to y'all's comments. So Clement says we better wake up and get ready for the Giants. Agreed, but we'll come back to that. Marcus says only thing is CD got to hold himself accountable. He did that podcast with Micah after Green Bay, said he got to be a leader and stop acting like that on the sideline. That's my only problem with it. That's fair. That's fair. He did acknowledge that he wanted to change his behavior and be more of a leader. And one of the things that I said in a Twitter space last night hosted by BJ Nix, shout out to Nix, I mentioned that sometimes when you're working on things, they don't get fixed instantly. And anyone who's ever had to change a habit, anyone who's ever gone to therapy for something, you know this. You've been through it probably, where you know that something needs to change. But when you're in a situation that brings that thing out of you, it's not the easiest thing in the world to just grab control of it immediately. Sometimes you don't even realize you're in one of those moments where you need to act different or use some of the tools that you might have been taught in order to handle those situations. And so that's why I'm giving him a little bit of grace here, because I don't know what it is that's causing him to have those issues or to struggle with changing the behavior in the way that he wants to change it. But I do know what it's like to have to do that. So just from personal experience, I'm giving him a little bit of grace there. And I think that's all the comments about CD. And then y'all get into the conversation about who picked the Cowboys to beat the Ravens, which, yeah, like I said, I can't think of anyone who did. And Clement says, Chris, you're right. Chris Johnson, you were right in saying that most people pick the Ravens. We are pissed off because we knew this team is a run-heavy offense and they dominated by moving guys off the line of scrimmage. I really do think that is a big part of it. It's one thing to have the wrong coverage or for something to be disguised. But when you have people just getting pushed off the line of scrimmage like that, especially when we're dealing with a situation with the Dallas Cowboys where this isn't the first time it's happened. It's not the second time it's happened. It's not the first season we've seen this issue. It's not the second season. It's for some reason is a repeated issue. And so fans are frustrated not only about that loss, but they're just like, okay, with all the options that are available, why can this team not seem to address this issue properly? I get it. And now y'all are talking about the Derrick Henry situation. Oh my goodness, y'all have a lot to say. All right. So with that being the case, I'm going to take this down. I'm going to start with the player interviews because the player interviews happened before the conversation with Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy was actually asked for his perspective on some of the things that the players were saying. So I'm going to pull up a couple of those and we'll talk about those. And then we'll get into Mike McCarthy's press conference, which is relatively short. So this will not be an all-nighter, which is good because bitches be tired. All right. Let's start with Maris Lufau. I'm starting with him because I talked to him today, but I didn't hear what he said to the press. I had a separate conversation with him.
You played overseas. Did they play in Dublin one time?
We did, yeah. We played in Ireland this past year, actually.
Last year, right?
Yeah, our first game of the season.
And then you had maybe 10 days off.
Yeah, I don't remember too much, but yeah.
Are you the DJ in here?
Yeah, right now I am, yeah.
So why we got old school going right now?
'Cause I like to listen to a little bit of everything.
Really?
Yeah, old school, new school, pretty much like it all.
What's you're a young kid, but you know football. You've been around it.
Mhm.
Also Notre Dame. What's the mood like around right now?
Right now, really, everybody's starting to come in right now. So I mean, I feel like the move's pretty good. I think that's because we all know what we have to do and what needs to get done. For me personally, I try not to.
So I'll say this. For the people who were there in the locker room, yes, the mood did seem pretty good. But how empty the locker room was suggests that there's a reason that some people were not in there. But one thing about Maris, he always seems to have just like a really chill vibe. I feel like it would take a lot to like bring him down and get him to a point where he were to actually say something like, yeah, nah, the mood in here, it kind of sucks. So I'm not surprised that he's like, yeah, the mood is pretty good. Cause like he was dancing. This obviously was not on camera, but like he was like actually dancing around to the music. And you'll hear it later in this interview. It's not that he's not aware that changes need to be made. He's very much like exactly what he just described. He's very much one of those types of people who if he knows what needs to be done, he's going to focus on doing better. He's going to focus on doing his job. He's not going to dwell on like kicking himself and being down in the dumps about it. He's just going to be like, hey, I've got work to do and I'm going to move forward and focus on getting that done. And to answer your questions, Chris, do these reporters really think they're going to get legit answers? Yes. There's a lot that y'all don't see on camera. And so you can kind of tell, I'll just put it this way. If I didn't have a good reason to believe that these were their honest answers, I wouldn't play these clips for you. There are conversations that are shared like this, and then there are conversations that sometimes you'll hear someone on like one of the podcasts reference, and maybe they won't say who they heard something from, or maybe they'll say, you know, I have reason to believe yada, yada, yada. And what happens is sometimes they're pointing to something that they've gotten from someone in the building that maybe either wasn't on the record or they don't want to like call out who the source was or whatever. But basically, reporters, they build relationships with these guys. They do. Continuing.
Make football a loss, bring me down as a person. Like I always know life moves on, and just like life, you have to keep moving forward.
You say you know what needs to be done. Exactly what is that?
I think just we need to be detailed in our process and disciplined in our job as players, and really play for each other, play with one, so that we play together as a team.
So the feeling is that there's a lot of individual play right now?
Not individual play, I would say, but I think there's just a lack of detail in executing our job. Yeah.
That guy's trying to do too much a little bit at times, especially against the run.
I want to say do too much, but I think sometimes, including myself, like I can be late a step to somewhere or things like that. I'm really just trying to focus on being able to do my job better, so that I can play within our defense and so that other people can have success as well.
When you guys are struggling on the sideline, who are some of the guys who are the most vocal?
Yeah, I would say Eric Kendricks is a big guy for us, who's vocal leader. Our safeties are talking to us, Hook and Dono. So those, as a young player, that's very encouraging to see from our vets, and definitely need that when we get into situations like you always do in football. Sometimes you're down, and to have leaders like that is huge.
What kind of stuff were they saying yesterday?
Just keeping our heads up. Like we're not always going to be up as a team, and so we know that. And just talking to the players and trying to get us back kind of to what we talk about, which is our neutral state.
So, Chris, case in point, this is one of the areas where I know I'm not going to get a legit answer. No matter how many ways I or any other reporter asks a question like, what did he say to you? They're never going to say verbatim what was said. They're never going to give you an exact quote. It's even hard sometimes to figure out who said what, even when they're like, "Oh yeah, people have been saying da da da," and you're like, "Well, who said that?" Like a lot of times they won't even tell you who. So yes, there's situations that as you get in the habit of talking with people, you kind of get a hang of like, okay, they're going to be vague on this, they're going to be specific on that, they're going to give a canned answer on this. Oh, but when he does that, I know he's being authentic. So stuff like that. Willie asks, Jazz, maybe you agree or disagree, but this team does too much talking instead of playing football. What do you mean by that? Because if you're talking about interviews like this, every player on every team does this. This is not a Cowboys exclusive thing. Now, the Cowboys get more attention, so you might see more of their interviews blasted all over the place. But no, every team does these. Every team does player interviews. Every team does press conferences after the game. So yeah, maybe tell me what exactly you mean by that if I'm off base with my assumption about what you mean. I love weed says this is a rookie talking like a vet. I do like Maris' demeanor. I do feel like he has a really good head on his shoulders. He's very even killed, and I do appreciate that. And that aspect of his presence is very vet like. Just got a couple more minutes with this one.
Getting back there so that we can go back out and execute our job.
How would you describe your first experience trying to tackle Derrick Henry? We're tackling Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, two very good runners, man. Coming from college, definitely was, first of all, cool to play against them. They're both hard to tackle, very slippery. Derrick Henry's a big guy. You gotta wrap him up for sure. And then just running to the football is something I've seen like we have to do as a defense, because sometimes like guys like Derrick Henry, you gotta have two guys on him, bring him down, and things like that. So swarming to the ball is going to be huge for us moving forward.
You mentioned reviewing that process throughout the week. I mean, how much of a challenge is it in a short turnaround going into a Thursday game to review that process in full?
Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely a big challenge, and it starts right now. Really, being able to focus and be intentional with what we got to do moving forward for this upcoming game. It's going to be everything to have success on Thursday.
Does that start with film, or is it a little bit more than that?
Yeah, film, taking care of your body. A lot of taking care of your body, because it's such a quick turnaround, and so being able to get your body ready to play on Thursday, and then film, getting into film, and knowing our opponent just like every other week.
I know Zimmer's one of the big things about this defense is doing your job. When you guys are kind of struggling a little bit, especially against the run, does that become like a touchstone thing for you guys? Like, hey, just everyone, we got to do your job. How does that kind of incorporate into the defense?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what Coach Sim preaches on, and it's really simple. And we just got to execute, really.
All right, we're gonna pause right there. I'm gonna stop sharing and bring myself back to the screen. So Willie, this is a good question, and I want to answer your question. It's not really a question, but it's a good comment, and I'm going to respond to it. You said during the week they talk about better, then once game time comes around, it's the same result. That's why I said less talking, more action. I might agree with you if I thought that them talking less would actually help anything. And I think there are some fans who say things like that because y'all really just want the action. If the action was there, you really wouldn't care about the talking. So you're just looking for something to point to say, okay, this must be the reason why they're not getting the results. The fact of the matter is, though, professional football is a difficult sport to play. And making adjustments for new opponents every week is also not easy. So when it comes to what they're saying, just because the results are not immediate does not mean that they're not working on things. Now, if you listen to some of the players talking, it does sound like there are some people who are not working on things. But even with those people, I don't think it's an issue of them talking too much. I think it's an issue of like whether they're talking or not. There are just some people who apparently are not doing what they should be doing. Who those people are, I have no idea. um, because even though Maris talked about the need to do certain things, we're gonna listen to Jay Lou in a second, and he was very passionate about the need for teammates to step up in various ways. No one has named names, and for good reason. They definitely, while it sounds like they're frustrated with each other, they definitely respect each other enough to not go there and start publicly naming names and calling people out. Um, but yeah, so it does. If what you're seeing is that okay, there could be more improvement, you're probably right. Players are telling us that. But if you think if they stop doing interviews, they would magically get better, I just don't agree on that. Very good teams, very accomplished teams do interviews, they do commercials, they do podcasts, they go to events, they go on dates, they enjoy their bye week, they enjoy their off season. Like all the things that Cowboys players get criticized for doing, damn near everybody does it. um, the issues that they have to overcome in order to see noted improvement, and I mean, I'm saying issues right now. There's a legitimate case to be made that it could literally be personnel, and you hate to say that because you hate to suggest that there's somebody on this 53-man roster who shouldn't be there, right? Like I hate putting that out in the universe. However, as a person who's been in leadership positions for several types of organizations, sports organizations, nonprofits, professional organizations, one thing that I've noticed is that, yes, you can get to a certain point with coaching, with training, with implementing a reward system, with implementing a disciplinary system. Those things will get you to a certain point. But I have yet to see anything when it comes to getting results for an organization. I have yet to see anything be as effective as just getting some new people in there. It's like there are a few people, there's a small percentage of people who will actually say, and I'm one of them. And this is why I was a proponent of this for so long. When I first started playing roller derby, I was trash. I did need special coaching. I did need special attention. I did need more time in order to get better. But I got better and I took that time. But then there are some people, like once I got to the point where I was captain and coach of my own roller derby team, I realized, yo, some of these people just got to go. There are some situations where we just need better players, bigger players in some cases, and we had pretty good results. I got us to third place in world championships, and I could have just been like, you know what, I'm comfortable with this. And I never got past that, but I also couldn't be naive about the reason why I never got past that mark. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I understand the desire to see them do better and to see a different amount of change from week to week. But I really don't believe that a 4.5 minute interview is going to make the difference. And it's like, you also got to think, it's not like they showed up just for this. They had a practice this morning, and I can't remember. I think there was a report that went out about who was there and who wasn't. But anyway, there was a practice this morning. And so they were in the locker room after that. So yeah, they were in there getting to work, doing all that. And then while they were in the locker room, these interviews happened. And here we are. Willie continues. I blame Jerry for the personnel. That's fair. He's in charge of that. It seems to me that Jerry is about headlines. I'm a Cowboys fan for life, but I have to call it like I see it. But I hear where you're coming from. And he might be. I don't think that means he doesn't want to win. One thing I talk about with successful business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, is there's a thing called a priority deck. And honestly, we all have one. But it's basically the idea that more than one thing is important to you, and they might be important in a certain order. So if you want to get an idea of how a priority deck works, just think about your job and think about, like, do you like your job? Would you still like your job if you got paid half as much as what you get paid now? So money might not be the most important thing. Like maybe there's something fulfilling about your profession, but money does matter. It just might be lower on the priority deck than professional fulfillment. So someone like Jerry Jones, I don't think he doesn't want to win, but is it possible that winning games is lower in the priority deck than making it headlines? Is it possible that he's the type of owner who wants to win a certain way, who wants to win his way? And if he doesn't win his way, it's more important for him to win his way than for him to just win. Very possible. I'm gonna share something else with y'all that I shared in the space last night. And I might have shared on here before. I know I've shared in the space before, but for the longest time, there was this idea of the curse of Jimmy Johnson. And it was this idea that until Jimmy Johnson was put in the Ring of Honor, the Cowboys would not make it to a Super Bowl. And so there was this push to get Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor, not because of the curse, but there were a lot of people who legitimately thought he deserved to be there, and they were right. But there was, this talk, this urban legend about this possible curse of Jimmy Johnson. And one of the things I said when I was asked if I believe in the curse, I said, I don't necessarily believe that putting Jimmy Johnson's name in the Ring of Honor will lift some curse and the Cowboys will all of a sudden be successful. However, if you do a little bit of research into the alleged reasons why Jimmy Johnson was left out of the Ring of Honor for so long, and how those alleged reasons relate to this idea of Jerry Jones being prideful and arrogant, maybe spiteful, maybe petty, I said, yeah, if that is who Jerry Jones is, then the way he makes decisions, the same type of decision making that's led him to keep Jimmy Johnson out of the Ring of Honor, the same type of character and decision making that led him to having a falling out with Jimmy Johnson in the first place, that same type of character and decision making could lead him to not make the best decisions for the franchise, for the team. So, from my perspective, that was the real curse of Jimmy Johnson. Not that it was about Jimmy Johnson's name being in the Ring of Honor, but it was more about the fact that Jerry Jones would have to change something about how he operates and interacts with people and how he makes these decisions in order to see success for the Dallas Cowboys. So, hopefully, that made sense to y'all. I'm gonna read a couple of more y'all's comments, and then we're going to watch the full cut of J. Lou's interview today. So Clement says, this is a continuation from an earlier comment. That is not satisfied with the results and understand the big picture, which is to improve each and every week. And we can't be complacent or happy with the results. I'm not mad at it. I agree. Oh, I think they came in out of order, maybe. I think this is actually the beginning of it. So Jerry Jones is a very stubborn individual that it has to be his way or the highway. I don't know Jerry Jones personally. But I can definitely see where one might get that interpretation of his character. And yes, I agree with Willie that he has a responsibility for the downfall of the Cowboys for now 30 years. Chris Johnson said it was over a chick. It's why he didn't want to put Jimmy in the Ring of Honor. That's wild. I think that might be the first time I've heard that theory. Interesting. All right. On that note, let's get into Jordan Lewis. Now, his sound was, I think, one of the ones that led to a lot of people really honing in on this idea of the details being important. Let's see, where is it? Hold on. Hold on. Let me go back and share the screen because the freeze frame they chose for the thumbnail is just such a good example of his I'm over this shit face. Like he looks done here. I'm not saying he's done. I'm just saying his face, he looks fed up. All right. Let's go ahead
What's a
and check this
recovery
one out.
process like to come off that game, the last two really, and now have a short week game at the Giants?
Uh, we gotta fix what we gotta fix, honestly. So
What do you feel like are the biggest things you have to do?
just detail every play. Just knowing the game within the game, which is every play. You got to be detailing that, and just understand your assignment every play, and how to do that through 60 minutes of football.
How do you address trying to get off to a better start as a defense when you've had a couple of games in a row where you didn't start well?
Like I said, it's a game within the game. No matter when a game starts, when it ends, you got to be detailing every play.
You take a lot of confidence up to New York because of your recent, like beating them 12 times in a row.
No, it's a new season. It's a new football team. New things we got to get better at. Well, same things we got to get better at. Be detailed.
Is the preparation on a short week a little bit, I guess, easier to come by when it's a division opponent, someone that you are familiar
It's the NFL. Preparation going to be the preparation. It doesn't make it any easier. People going to be gunning for us, and we just got to be detailed, honestly. And that comes with, today's practice and the game.
So literally everything that they're asking him, he just keeps going back to detail and the need for better preparation. They're asking him about the short week. They're asking him about what opponents might try to do. Marcus says, yeah, he fed up for real. Like, yeah, you can tell. When dudes like him start shaking their head and their eyebrows go way up here and they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, oh yeah, they're done. There's nothing you can do. There's something on their minds, and that's all you're going to get.
What's the challenge of facing Malik Neighbors? He's off to a record-setting start to his career in New York.
We got to be detailed. We got to see how we can stop people. I mean, at the end of the day, this is about us stopping people. That's just what it is. We got to be out. We got to be credible and accountable every single play, and that's 60 minutes of football. It don't matter who we play. We got to go out there and be detailed in the plays. It don't matter who we play in this NFL. If we're not doing that, anybody can beat us.
You said people are gunning for you. Why?
You're not detailed.
Because they think you're vulnerable?
There it is.
We're not detailing our work. You can take advantage of details. So that's how you win in this league. Everybody's good in this league. It's the details that make you different.
How do you get details?
The work. Honestly, watching film, see what they like to do, see how we can defend it, see what our techniques are in our every play. And that's really the end all be all. Just understanding what we need to do every single play.
It's a new scheme with Zim and all that, but a lot of you guys have played together for a while. Is it surprised that the details are something that's coming up?
That's always been a problem.
How do you fix details being a problem?
Work.
I like how now the press is like, okay, we're talking about detail. Like they just completely shifted. Like, all right, if you're going to talk about detail, then we're just going to ask questions about detail.
Honestly, it's just a work. You can't be detailed if you don't go to work every day and act like it's. I said it last week. You have to play. You have to practice how you play, and that's what it is. You have to practice every day like it's your last day, like it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like you about to play a game. So that's until we do that, it's gonna be the same old thing.
Dak said last night that guys need to be more responsible for their preparation beyond what practice reps you get, what film you can watch. Guys need to be more professional. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, be a pro. That's your job. Be detailed in your work. Understand how people want to attack you. That's your job. That's our job as football players, as individuals. That's how we be better as a collective. Understanding what you need to do every single down to make the 111, your 111, the best 111.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Thanks, sure.
So this one is another example of understanding when you're getting an authentic answer. You could tell from his body language that he was genuinely frustrated. I was reading an article that Patrick Nosey Walker wrote about this particular conversation, and Nosey used the word angry. If you read it, he used the word angry. He said something like obviously angry, something about the fact that he was like clearly angry, which y'all can see it there, but it was also obvious like this was not something that J. Lou just did for the cameras and they baited him into a question and he happened to say something that incriminated the rest of the roster. You heard in the beginning that they were asking him other questions and he just kept going back to detail. We need to do the work. We got to show up and we got to practice how we played and yada, yada, yada. Like he just kept going back to that, even though they were trying to ask him other questions. And I hope it's okay to share this since the interview is out, but not that there's other information that I'm sharing, but even after the cameras went off, he continued to share. So it wasn't like, okay, the cameras are gone. Like I'm gonna go sit down. Like, nah, that frustration was genuine. It was there. Cameras, no cameras, microphones, no microphones. It was there. This was how he felt. And so it's moments like that when you see it, you're like, okay, this dude is for real. And that's why people like Patrick feel comfortable and confident to go and write in an article like, yo, this is how these players are feeling because they're there. They can see what's happening before the cameras come on and when they go off. Or even like a lot of times when I'm on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, and we talk about talking to guys in the locker room, a lot of the anecdotes and quotes that we're sharing happen when there are no cameras around, which I can't speak for them. For me, it's because I'm short. So I hate being in the media scrum because I'm short. I don't like people crowding around me. And then if I'm in the back, I can't hear very well. So I like to try to talk to players by myself. And sometimes I record them and sometimes I don't. But when you get in the habit of doing that, you can kind of tell who's like, you can read body language. Like you talk to somebody, like go up to somebody in public. You can kind of get a vibe for when they don't feel like talking to you and they're just giving you an answer so you'll go away versus when they seem comfortable with you. They're comfortable sharing details about their lives with you. Like we know this. Like people do still go outside, right? Like we still do that. We still talk to people in person. Like I know apps are like a big thing, but like we still like go to bars and stuff and meet people, right? We know how this works. Okay, cool. Let me get to a couple of more of your comments. Somebody said something about Micah and his podcast. And Chris, yes, you're right. He was absolutely venting. And he wasn't the only one. You listen to a lot of these interviews, and a lot of them are reiterating the same points. I think we're not going to listen to Ferg, but Ferg was saying a lot of the same stuff about players needing to step up and needing to do better, and needing to be more accountable. And Dak was talking about being more professional, and Jayla used the word detail, and Mikey used the word accountable. But they're all essentially saying the same thing. Even Maris, what he said, he was a little bit more specific, a little bit more pointed in, oh, we need to work on this, we need to get better on that. But even he reiterated the need for guys to put in work in order to get better. So yeah, not only was like Jay Lou was venting there, absolutely, but he was expressing something that seems to be a commonly held frustration among several members of the team. Marcus said, J. Lou, one of the smallest out there and one of the biggest dogs on the field. I bet he would love to get that kind of compliment. Chris said, I'm glad we have all the tough games early in the season, exposing everything we need to get past the first round. Hopefully it works out that way. Like, if we have a rough start to the season, but actually have a deep playoff run, I don't even care anymore. Because, like, real talk. Think about it this way, y'all. By week 5 last year, we were 3-2 anyway. So if they can have a good game against the Giants, use that momentum to bounce back after that, we might end up in another situation where by week 5, we're 3-2 again. And next thing you know, we're back on the same path we were on last year. Only maybe this will compel them to actually address some of the more pressing issues, and they actually solve some of the things they need to solve to do better in the playoffs. So, like, the season isn't over. Like, it's been a bad look. It has definitely been a bad look, but it is still only week 3. Clement says, details and work is being mentioned every time in this interview. I think it was Jess Navarez who said he used the word details, detail, or detailed 14 times in that few minutes. But Clement says details and work is being mentioned every time in this interview tells me that some of these players aren't focused and dialed into the details and work on their techniques and craft. Clement, that's the idea that I'm getting from these interviews as well. It definitely sounds like these players are frustrated with some of their teammates, who they're not going to call out, but hopefully they handle it internally, because it's like, in order for you to be that frustrated with people's behavior, you would have to know. They're not telling us, but they have to know who is committing the behavior. So if you know who it is, and there are several people frustrated by those people, it seems like y'all should be able to come together and take care of it. But I don't know, maybe it's a hierarchy thing. I think Dak himself said that he didn't have a good practice last week. So I don't know. The whole situation might be even more complicated than we can infer from what we're hearing so far. All right. But yeah, to answer someone's question about Micah, I believe Micah's podcast happens on Tuesdays. I wasn't planning on listening to his sound, but we can, let's see, we've been doing this for over an hour. Let's just go to McCarthy's just in case, because I don't want this to be a 2-hour live. Cavante in these glasses looks like a professor. Like, he looks like he's about to give a dissertation. Hold on, let me share it. He looks like he's about to give a dissertation on what's going on with this team. It almost makes me want to like listen to what he has to say. It's 2 minutes and 15
Fonte, can you just talk about the challenge of trying to overcome the 2-game slide on a short week, and how quickly you got to kind of rinse and get that off of you to go into New York?
I just say, man, everybody got to come up here and just be on their P's and Q's, man. Everybody got to be on top of everything, man. Just come from the meetings to everything, man. To the mock game that we got today, everybody just got to be locked in. Just come out here and just be a professional.
Took a while because of the struggles, had some penalties that kind of killed drives, some self-inflicted wounds, but the offense came alive in the fourth quarter. Talk about how you can try to use that confidence and build on it going into New York.
I just feel like we play best when we up tempo. So I feel like that's a good goal that we can use going into this game. Just play up tempo, and I just say, man, everybody got to be locked in, man. Everybody got to be on their P's and Q's.
Another touchdown for you offensively. Talk about your value to the offense and just the team as a whole, not simply as a dynamic kick return.
I just say, man, I'm just trying to, come here every day, man. Come here, just try to be a playmaker, man. Just showing what I can do on the field, and just as a receiver, punt return, whatever they need me. I can go play corner if they need me to. But I'm just trying to go out there and just be a playmaker, just help this team win.
What are the discussions within this locker room about guys dialing in, taking care of their job? It seems to be a theme going forward.
Yeah, I just say, man, everybody just got to really just be locked in, man. At the same time, man, everybody feel like it's everybody for themselves right now. I just feel like, man, just play football, man. Everything we did since we were young, just come out here and just play football. It's something that you love.
Is this locker room staying together? Is it you feel like it's dividing or something?
Oh no. We all together, man. Everybody love each other in the locker room. I just feel like, man, everybody just gotta be locked in. I feel like everybody ain't on the same page right now, and I feel like once we all get on the same page, we're gonna be back clicking.
And what is it gonna take to get on the same page?
Everybody just focus up. Like I said, everybody just focus up. Come here every day. Just be on their P's and Q's.
Turk, what's the message going into this short week and kind of how to get over this hump from the last 2 weeks?
I would just say everybody just come in here, just get our bottle ready, man. Don't worry about the last week. Just come out here and worry about the Giants right now, man. Just go out here, try to get a win.
Thanks, sir.
I appreciate you.
Okay. So Micah said accountability. Dak said professionalism. J. Lou said detail. And for Cavante Turpin, the key word is P's and Q's or P's and Q's. I can't imitate that accent, but y'all heard. Somebody said he looks like Lupe Fiasco. I don't know. I don't quite see it. All right. So now let's get into the sound from Mike McCarthy. A lot of people have been talking about what Mike McCarthy said because he sounded frustrated. People are trying to speculate whether or not he might have gotten, quote unquote, chewed out by Jerry Jones. I'm not sure. It could be anything. Maybe he did. Maybe he's tired of the way the conversation is going. But it definitely sounds like he did not walk into this press conference in the best of moods. So it's about 10 minutes. We'll stop it at a couple of sections and we'll talk about some of what he says here.
Mike, David Orr, Dallas Morning News. After yesterday's game into today, some of the players are talking just about how they need to be more detailed, more professional in approach, how they were kind of getting into hero ball. Did you see elements of all that and what's happened yesterday?
I think like anything, when the result doesn't go the way you want it to go, emotions are part of our game. So expression of emotion, on Sundays always creates potential narratives and so forth. But based off our work today, what needed to be said has been said, and we're on to the Giants. We put in first, second, and third down today, so it's been a full day.
Okay, so going back to this whole idea of expecting legit answers, as soon as I heard that, I was like, we're not going to get any legit answers from Mike McCarthy, because he was just asked about what is essentially the topic of the day. Everybody in your locker room is talking about this need for accountability, for guys to step up and do better in a multitude of ways. And he's just like, yeah, we're moving on to the Giants. Very dismissive. Now, I hope he's not that dismissive with the players, because if so many people are feeling this way, it's something that needs to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. It's something that needs to be taken seriously. But as far as what he's telling the media, nah, he is not. He's not giving sincere, thought out answers. He sounds like a man who's trying to get through this interview.
Mike Todd Archer with ESPN. What needed to be said today in your mind?
Well, just like anything. I mean, I'm not going to get into specifics, or this isn't show and tell. It's about being accountable, and we didn't have a whole lot of time to spend on corrections, so we did that in the beginning part of it, and we had to move right into the Giants. So every time you compete, there's plenty of corrections. We obviously had too many. But we're still in position to win the game. So, and that's something that will not get lost. As part of the evaluation, because it's factual, and the things that you look at, just the one statistic that stands out for over top of all the other ones where the execution was not in our favor. We were +2 in the big play category, and so that tells you, puts you, you're in position to win a game. We got to make one more of those big plays.
Offensively, with how you guys played for most of the fourth quarter, you're in a 2-minute situation. Considering the slow starts, do you ever think like that's a way to kind of jumpstart to open up that way, or can you go tempo now?
No, I mean, we know huddle offense is, we've done it in the past. I've done it throughout my whole career, but that's not where we are right now. We need to, the efforts there, the execution is what we'll be focused on.
Yeah, sure.
So this is one of the questions that I wish there would have been more of a follow-up, or that he would have given more detail, because he was asked about basically, hey, what we saw at the end of the Ravens game, is that something that the Cowboys might carry into the coming weeks that might help them perform a little bit better? And he's like, yeah, we've done no huddle before, but we're not quite there. The execution is lacking. And it's like, but we just saw you do it. and it looked better than what the team was doing before that. Maybe the execution isn't perfect, but it definitely seemed like a good switch up from what was happening before that. So like, why not keep trying to do that? But like I said, definitely Mike McCarthy here has the demeanor of someone who just wants to get through this press conference. It's an obligation and he wants to get out, because yes, he is asked about some of the things that the players are saying, which, even if you're a person who doesn't want to dwell, right? Dak Prescott talked a lot about that, like not dwelling. We got to move on. We got other stuff to focus on and think about, right? So even if this was happening because he didn't want to dwell, even when he's asked about things pertaining more directly to football, he doesn't even give good or quality answers to those questions. And you'll see what I mean as we get later in the press conference.
showed it with the Athletic. When we talked to Jordan Lewis today, he mentioned over and over again about having to be more detailed on defense. When you watch the game over again, just on the defensive side, is it the small detail thing, or what do you think it is?
Well, it's totally small details. It's all the way through the team. I mean, the defense had, more of it than you like. But yeah, the details, knowing the details breeds confidence. Confidence makes you play faster, keeps you connected. So we need to do that throughout our whole team. So we got work to do.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. We've talked about.
So even in acknowledging what Jay Lou said, he's like, yeah, details are important. We got work to do. The emotion that he's showing does not seem to match the frustration that Jay Lou showed. And maybe that's because of the way the question was asked. Maybe he hadn't actually seen what Jay Lou put on camera before he answered that question.
The details the last 2 weeks. Is it a little frustrating that we're continuing to have these discussions with you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you got to look at what they are. Continued mistakes are the things you have to definitely eliminate, especially if it's the pre-snap penalties. Those. To start the game the way we did. That's a kick in the ass. You take the ball for a reason. You got 3 penalties. You had obviously on the kickoff and then 2 on the first drive. So that's not the way you want to start a football game. And that's so. It's those things that you got to make sure you stay on top of. We're gonna have some bumpy times. That's part of just where we are as far as new defense. Young players playing, and but we need to be better. And we had a chance to win that game. The slow start did not help.
Bill and Carson, where do they? You got a short week. What do they say?
Yeah, tomorrow I'll give you a better idea. I thought they both did what they needed to do today, but yeah, it's we'll know more tomorrow with both those guys.
So when he says we'll know more tomorrow, he was asked about Marquise Bell and Kalen Carson. And so I guess they're waiting on information that they're expecting to come out tomorrow about the physical state of those guys. Hey, Sadiqa, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see. Let me go down on here. So Willie says Mike McCarthy is going to be the scapegoat if they don't get it turned around. Willie, I don't know if that's inaccurate. Because usually when people use the word scapegoat, they're talking about something that doesn't deserve the blame, but it's getting all of the blame. But this week we've seen Kellen Moore have a big victory. We've seen Dan Quinn have a big victory. We're seeing a lot of people ask the question of with those guys out of here, why are we still seeing some of the same issues? Now, if you want to say it's bigger than Mike McCarthy, okay, but there's definitely something that's not happening on the coaching level that is allowing these patterns to keep repeating. And so now that I'm thinking about it, if you're saying he's a scapegoat and someone above him is actually the issue, okay, that's legit. But in terms of the coaches and staff, yeah, I feel like he's playing a role in some of the things that aren't really going the way that fans would like to see them go.
Saad Yusuf, The Athletic. Mike, where do you stand kind of on pre-snap motion offensively? What does it do? What advantage can it give the offense when you do implement it? And how much do you prefer to have that in your offense?
It's part of the winning the pre-snap potentially. Whether you're trying to change challenge the odd discipline of the defense, create landmarks, get in reduced splits, get out of reduced splits. Yeah, there's benefits to it. I think like anything, you have to have a menu of a number of things in this league, especially over a 17-game period.
We talked to you last year after the San Francisco game about CeeDee Lamb and his body language and stuff. I know you asked about it last night, but just the next.
So I'm going to pause there before he answers a question about CeeDee Lamb. He was just asked about motion and basically gave a definition of what motion is. Now, I'm pretty sure that y'all are on the same page with me that that's not a satisfactory answer. But it's going to be asked again later. So listen for it. Somebody else, and I'm going to shout them out when they do it, but somebody else is going to ask them a little bit more of a pointed question about motion on the offense.
Day, do you have any conversations with him after that?
The only thing I'm worried about, not worried about, the only thing I'm focused on our passing game is we got to get a completion percentage up. So it starts with the play caller. You throw the ball 51 times and you're not north of 60%. That's where my focus is, and that's where everybody's focus needs to be.
Shouldn't be throwing the ball
Nick
that
Harris,
much,
Four
though.
Star Telegram. I know you said you guys don't have a ton of time for corrections this week, but with Jordan Lewis talking about details, Michael Parsons last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must.
Okay, so I'm gonna rewind this because this is when I first saw this part and I made my tweet, I didn't realize so many people were already talking about this segment of the press conference. But this is a section where he kind of comes at Nick sideways, and a lot of people were like, yo, that was unnecessary. And Marcus, I agree. 51 is too much. That's way too many times for him to be passing the ball. We're going to get to that in a second. But let me rewind a few seconds. And I want y'all to think about everything that we've heard from the sound bites from the players. Then listen to what Nick Harris says to this man. And then listen to how he answers.
Focus on our passing game is we got to get a completion percentage up. So it starts with the play caller. You throw the ball 51 times and you're not north of 60%. That's where my focus is, and that's where everybody's focus needs to be.
Nick Harris, Four Star Telegram. I know you said you guys don't have a ton of time for corrections this week, but with Jordan Lewis talking about details, Michael Parsons last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must practice that one. Jeez, I mean, well, hey, Thursday schedule. I mean, that's what we're on. I mean, it's we didn't win the game, so I think
that was a very legitimate and timely question. Like, so think about it. The locker room interviews took place at 11 o'clock this morning. This press conference with Mike McCarthy took place at 4:45, I think it was. So they just heard, like, just a few hours before this conversation, they just heard a very important player on the team go off about detail. The day after, you hear two important players on the team go off about professionalism and accountability. And you've got pretty much everybody they talk to in the locker room talking about accountability or the need for focus or the need to do the work or stay on their P's and Q's. And then they went to lunch and then they came to talk to you. And all you want to do is talk about the fact that it's a short week. And so Nick Harris is like, hey, I get that it's a short week, but this other stuff seems to be on your players' minds. So with it being a short week, how are you going to address their concerns? And then he called this man dramatic. This is the definition of when they say a hit dog gonna holler. Like this is an example. Like you could put this video on Google to be like, if you don't know what that phrase means, this is an example, because he was not being attacked. That was not an unreasonable question. But he responded like Nick had just cussed him out or something. It's wild. It's wild. I'm going to go back to the beginning of his response to Nick.
Last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must practice that one. Jeez, I mean, well, hey, Thursday schedule. I mean, that's what we're on. I mean, it's we didn't win the game, so I think that's part of where we are. I mean, so yeah, I think they do a good job of answering your questions. It's emotional after the game, so I'm not ever going to referee emotion on the field or after a game.
I also didn't like that. He said they do a good job of answering your questions and they're emotional after a game. And those responses suggest that he's being very dismissive of the feedback from the players, because this wasn't about them giving good answers to the reporters' questions. And I don't think it was about them just being emotional after a game. This is at minimum compounded frustration from the past two games. And if you go by what some of these guys are saying, it's compounded frustration from even last season. I just don't understand how you don't take that a little bit more seriously. Even if you don't want to get specific about the conversations you've had with these players, you could at least convey in your answer that you take it seriously, but that you want to keep those conversations private, that you want to keep what you're doing in response to those conversations private. I think that would have been beyond reasonable to just be like, hey, I don't want to go into detail about the conversations that we're having behind closed doors, but we are figuring out a way to address it and not take it with us to face New York. Okay, fine. I get it. He's handling it. He's not going to tell us what they're talking about it, but they're talking about it. Okay, cool. But just coming at Nick or really any member in the media that way, it just felt so unnecessary. And then for him to move on from that to like, yeah, they're doing a good job of answering your questions, and I'm not gonna focus too much on emotion after a game. It's super dismissive. It's super dismissive, and I think these players are serious. And if you keep ignoring what they're saying and how they're feeling, it's only gonna get worse. They're trying to tell you. They're trying to let you know there's a problem. So like, listen to them. And it's like, maybe you don't figure out a solution today. Maybe you don't figure it out tomorrow. Maybe you don't figure it out by Thursday. But if you at least start the process of listening to them and thinking about what they're saying and saying, okay, we got to figure out how to solve boom, boom, boom. Hopefully at some point during the season, you can figure out what to do about it. But to just dismiss it as emotion and good answers to media questions, that's not what we need to hear right now. That's not how he should be looking at their responses.
Aaron Kazan's Lone Star Live. Miles Smith played a whole ton in there. I think he had a career high in snaps. How would you evaluate the defensive line in general, and why do you think he?
I can't give you real evaluations because actually we didn't go through a grading evaluation today, so I don't have the one-on-one evaluations that. So, but yeah, I thought Mozzie, especially the week that he went through, for him to go out there and play as much as he did, I was proud of him.
Mike Edwards, WFA. Given what you've seen from the three running backs, what's your inclination as far as this being a week you might look at Dell?
I'm not here to make any, decisions or proclamations on what's next. So, like I said, we got first, second, and third down in.
Skyler Dixon with the AP. I think you've talked us to in the past about, getting off to quick starts kind of being on the menu of prep during the week. I just wondered, after two slow starts in a row, is there any feeling on your part of kind of re-emphasizing that and how much you do that during the week? I guess a short week too.
Re-emphasize over how we already do it, or?
Yeah, I mean, you re-emphasize.
Hey, it's a short week. We have a session on, we call it fast start and furious finish Friday. So it's an emphasis on the beginning of the game, how we feel the beginning of the game is going to go. We spend a lot of time at the end of the game. We put a lot of time invested in situations. So we won't have a traditional Friday this week. So we got to build that into the Saturday type schedule, which would be Wednesday. So, Thursday schedule puts you on a different schedule. So, but we'll still emphasize it.
Garrett
Podell, CBS Sports. Mike, you talked about during the draft sort of building out your team with the idea of, who you're going to see regularly, facing Dexter Lawrence, the Giants D-line with a younger O-line. What's the challenge of that, and how are you preparing those guys for that?
Well, I mean, Dexter's a huge challenge regardless of, who you line up with as far as, youth, in particular with our young guys. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of respect for him. He's played very well so far. You can see it. He's a presence in there. He demands, double teams and so forth. But I think their line as a whole, I've been impressed with so far.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio on the Fan. Short week. It is a familiar opponent, but they do have a new defensive coordinator. So what kind of wrinkle is that? And I know you went against him with the Titans. Is there anything to pull from that?
Yeah, definitely. Kellen called it back then, but it's different. It's something that in the summer we talked about. You got 3 games to look at. They've all been different, frankly, the way he's called it. So that has stood out. But yes, we've done some historical work on him.
So one thing that I'm finding interesting up to this point is that usually Mike McCarthy will give longer answers. And I've always thought that he gave longer answers so that members of the media couldn't ask as many questions. Because it's like they're timed, right? So it's like if you give a long answer, then that's less time for other people to answer questions. or to ask questions. But for whatever reason, and this press conference was short anyway, but for whatever reason, his answers are still pretty short. And I think that's another thing people were pointing to when they talked about the frustration showing up from Mike McCarthy.
Mike Licky played 30 snaps yesterday, and some of it was in protection and things like that. What do you like about him in protection and also as a guy who catches the
I
ball for
think
you?
Hunter's a fine football player. He's really earned these opportunities. He's a 4-down player. He's not just a fullback. He can be a one back. He can be a 3 surface player, 4 surface player. I mean, he had a big catch, on the keep there on 3rd and 1. So he's earned those opportunities, and I think that has been reflected in his play time.
Fair.
Coach, Aisha Morrison, BounceCowboys.com.
Okay, so this is the question where Mike gets asked a more specific question about the motion. So shout out to Aisha Morrison. It sounds like, well, we all know that she studies a lot of film. So a lot of thought went into this question. And I personally felt like the answer that he gave wasn't a thorough enough answer considering what she asked. But y'all listen to it. Y'all tell me.
You mentioned the lack of completion percentage on the offensive side of the ball. You need to get that up. The Ravens secondary, real feisty, played a lot of press as well. With the completion percentage being down, the separation was difficult for the receivers to separate it sometimes. How do you take on that responsibility as a play caller? Do you feel like you need to, in those moments, do things to help those guys, or you feel like that's delegated to them winning their matchups?
Okay, let me pause right there because I said she asked about motion. She didn't. She asked about separation. I think the reason why I made that association in my mind was because I expected him to maybe mention something about motion in his answer. But what she actually asked about was the lack of separation between the receivers and the guys covering them, and how he felt about his responsibility to help, like, basically help that situation and improve the amount of separation. So I'm gonna go back so y'all can hear the question one more time and then listen to his answer. Either way, I still feel like he could have given a better answer. And yes, Chris, this was a very good question, very relevant to what we saw on Sunday.
You mentioned the lack of completion percentage on the offensive side of the ball. You need to get that up. The Ravens secondary, real feisty, played a lot of press as well. With the completion percentage being down, the separation was difficult for the receivers to separate it sometimes. How do you take on that responsibility as a play caller? Do you feel like you need to, in those moments, do things to help those guys, or you feel like that's delegated to them winning their matchups?
Oh yeah, I mean that's all part of it. You have a game plan. You have in-game decisions. We went to a 2-minute, there in the 4th quarter. So yeah, definitely those are the things you're talking about there during the course of the game, and that's part of the adjustment.
I feel like he did not answer the question. He basically just acknowledged, like, yeah, separation is important and we should fix that. And she's like, I just asked how you felt you should, like, what you felt you should do to help them fix that and whose responsibility it was. Like, he didn't say whose responsibility it was or what needed to change or what needed to be done differently. Like, hold on, listen to his answer one more time. And remember the question he's supposed to be answering. She asked about if it's his responsibility to help them get separation, or if she just expected, or if he just expected the receivers to beat their matchups and it was up to them to get separation regardless of the play or the scheme or whatever. So listen to this one more time.
It was difficult for the receivers to separate it sometimes. How do you take on that responsibility as a play caller? Do you feel like you need to, in those moments, do things to help those guys, or you feel like that's delegated to them winning their matchups?
Oh yeah, I mean that's all part of it. You have a game plan. You have in-game decisions. We went to a 2-minute, there in the 4th quarter. So yeah, definitely those are the things you're talking about there during the course of the game, and that's part of the adjustment.
I'm like, did he even hear the question? Did he even listen to her? It Y'all have a lot of comments regarding this section of the press conference that I'm gonna read in a second, but like this was the second most frustrating part of his press conference. The situation with Nick was the most frustrating part, but this was definitely the second most frustrating part. And in both situations, with Nick, it felt like he was kind of rude. That was unnecessary. With Aisha, it felt like he was dismissive. Like she asked a good question and he just acted like she ain't say shit. And I'm like, yo, she specifically referenced something that you said at the beginning of this press conference and basically said, hey, what can be done about that? And you're like, yeah, something should be done. Moving on. Mad weird.
When you look at your team right now, do you have to say, do they understand what's happening, or do you have to just say, look, we're in a 2-game losing streak, we got to get an act together, or do they know we got to get an act together? How much do you kind of talk to them about those types of things?
Yeah, I talk to them every day. I have a team meeting every day. I have an opportunity to obviously talk to the offense more. But yeah, we understand where we are. We're 1-2. Yeah, got our first division game in front of us.
All righty, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. He's frustrated, and I can understand that. But I'm going to put it this way. A lot of people have been criticizing CeeDee Lamb since yesterday, saying that he's unprofessional because he let his emotions show and he didn't talk to the media. But there haven't been as many comments about Mike McCarthy. But I feel like Mike McCarthy is also letting his emotions show. And yes, he's talking to the media because he's obligated to do so. But does it feel like he's actually doing justice to this press conference? Like, it felt like he wasn't even really answering the questions half the time. So what I'm asking y'all is, does it really feel like Mike McCarthy is being that much more professional than CeeDee Lamb just because he showed up and spoke? Like, when we actually take into consideration, like, yes, he was there. Yes, he spoke to them. But when we listen to these answers and how dismissive he seemed of what the reporters were asking, of what they told him his players were saying, how rude he was to Nick. Like, if CeeDee Lamb did show up after the game and he was rude to people and he wasn't really answering questions, what do you think people would say about him? Do you think they'd be like, well, at least he showed up? Or do you think they would be saying the same things that they're saying now or something worse? So I'm saying that to say, like, yes, maybe CD did not handle himself in the way that we'd like to see, but sometimes I've been in relationships with guys who, like, we'll have an argument and they just need time. They're like, yo, I'm gonna be back, but just for the rest of the day, we just don't need to talk. And it can be hard, right? But I say that to say there are some people in this world who know they just need separation. They just need time. Now is not the time to be asking them questions or even to try to crack jokes or do anything. They need space, they need silence, they need time to themselves. Some people know that. And I don't think that's a problem. And I would actually prefer that over how we just saw Mike McCarthy respond to some of these questions. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Now, the same way Kevontae Turpin pointed out, hey, it's all love. We just know that there are improvements that need to be made. I just want to make it clear. I don't have a personal problem with Mike McCarthy. I'm not on the Mike McCarthy needs to be fired bandwagon right now. I think I might have been, was I after Green Bay? I know I was considering that he might be. I thought there was a much greater chance that he might be fired than what it seemed like there actually was later, right? But I'm not like, oh, I can't stand him, get him out of here. So I don't want people to take this criticism as that's what I'm saying or that's what I mean. I'm really just talking about this situation and I'm just evaluating his responses, his behavior, his interaction. That's all. And I'm just pointing certain things out for you all to try to help provide context for what's really a very muddy situation. Because even in these comments, as y'all have been interacting with me tonight, we've seen everything from comments about McCarthy to comments about the defense Y'all have talked about whether McCarthy might be fired or whether you think he might be fired. Y'all have talked about what y'all think the Cowboys are going to do against the Giants. I think a second ago, y'all were talking about, there's comments in here about the Ravens game. So the last game, the upcoming game, we talked about all sorts of things because fans are looking for answers. Fans want to understand what's happening. And there are components of this story that I promise you, we will never hear, we will never know. Even if they do fix it, there's going to be aspects of that we will never be privy to, and that's fine. But that's what happens when people are frustrated. People want answers. They want to understand. They want to know why these players that they were so excited about all of a sudden aren't delivering the results that they expected them to achieve. So let's go through some of these comments. We'll wrap up, and then I'm gonna get out of here because I've been yawning, and I do need to get to bed. And just an update: there will be another press conference tomorrow. So normally there's not on Tuesdays, but we might come back tomorrow night, depending on. So there's a press conference, and there's also locker room availability tomorrow. So depending on what comes out of all that. We might come back tomorrow night and talk more about whether it's about this or maybe everyone will have moved on to comments about the Giants and we can talk more about the Giants. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about the sound that comes out. But let me get to some of y'all's comments and then I'll let y'all get to bed. And I'll get to bed. Okay. So Sadiqa said he responded how Jerry would respond. I feel like Jerry, yes, he would have been elusive. He would have been dismissive. But I feel like Jerry might have tried to make more light of the situation. But in that sense that like he's not really answering the question. Yeah, totally agree with you there. Willie, in reference to the part of the press conference about Dak Prescott's pass attempts and the completion percentage, says 51 is too much. Willie, I totally agree. 51 is too much, but how is Dak Prescott going to survive when he has no running game to lean on? Dak Prescott is better when they run the ball, which sets up play action. Exactly, and we know this, not only through observation, but we have statistics that support it. 16 carries, I don't understand it. I don't get it. If they lose this game against the Giants, someone getting fired. That seems to be a popular consensus. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some over under on that pop up in Prize Picks because that's definitely a theory that's floating around. Let's see what else. Cooper Beebe has his hands full of Dexter Lawrence on Thursday. This is facts. Thanks for pointing that out, Clement. Lipke is underutilized, agreed. But also, Lipke has had to grow. It's not like he's been this player the whole time and then they've just been like, keeping him boxed up. He's improved. He's had to prove that he could be depended on in this way. And he's proven that. And I'm happy for him. But that is something that happens more often than I think people realize with players, where they just have to grow. They just have to grow into the role, like the next role for themselves. A lot of people acknowledging Aisha's question. Clement says, shout out to Aisha Morrison for asking the question, indeed, on why receivers can't get separation from the Ravens defensive backs. The offensive line better gel quickly. They really do need to. It's starting to get ugly. And not only protect Dak, but start opening holes in the running game, period. Yeah, to me, honestly, Clement, that is one of the most frustrating things about the running game is the fact that running backs are being blamed for a lot of things that, honestly, from my observation, might have more to do with the execution of blocking assignments. It's that and the fact that they're doing this whole running back by committee thing that is making it hard for them to get a rhythm. It's making it harder for them to gel because one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot or enough is the fact that offensive linemen, they have to know who they're blocking for and they have to get used to that, right? So when it comes to things like timing or how much space someone needs, things like that can affect how you approach a blocking assignment. And if it's always changing, if it's always different and it's kind of random, it's harder for everyone, for the running backs and for the O-line, to be able to do their jobs effectively. So I really hope they get away from this whole running back by committee thing. They figure out who's going to have what job, who's going to be the star, who's going to be a role player, how all that's going to work. Actually design some plays for these guys, because I feel like they haven't done right by Deuce Vaughn so far all season. I know there are some people who are ready to just get him off the field, but I feel like they have not given him the opportunities that he actually needs in order to show what he can do. Like, seriously, watch the film. If y'all got access, watch the film, and you'll see there are so many times, and it's not just him, it's happened to Rico as well, where there's just a guy who's missed, and that ends up being the guy who makes the tackle on our running back. That seemed to happen a lot in the Ravens game. And I do need to go back and look at it a little bit more closely, and maybe ask some people, like, was this exclusive to the Ravens, or is this something that's been happening? Is this something special that they did, or is it something that the O-line was just messing up on, But yeah, there are a lot of things going wrong in terms of what the O-line is doing that is making it harder for the running backs. So just putting that out there. Chris said, you got to give us another hour. No, I don't, especially if I'm coming back tomorrow. I got to sleep sometime, fam. Come on. And Chris also says, this running back by committee is so trash. Agreed. I'm trying to think of another word besides trash, because, like, I don't know. When you cross paths with these people, it's just like there's this urge for me to be a little bit less rude. But, like, dog, you're right. It's trash. It's not working. I don't think it's what's best for this running back room. And I think until they fix it, the run game is going to have problems. And as long as the run game has problems, the offense is going to have problems, because you can't be out here not with this makeup of an offensive unit with 16 carries and 51 passing attempts. That's not what we want to see. That does not sound like an equation for success here. And it's been proven in the past that is indeed an equation for failure. So I don't know. We'll see if this whole conversation leaks over into tomorrow, or if everybody else has something different to say. There might be different people in the locker room. Maybe after sleeping on it for a little bit, people have a different perspective and different responses. I don't know what to expect at this point, but I will tell you one thing. I am ready to turn the page and start talking about the Giants. So hopefully we'll all be off of this loss and talk about what needs to happen on Thursday in order for the Cowboys to be successful. And that alone would make tomorrow a better day than, well, actually, what time is it? A conversation about the Giants and what the Cowboys need to do is better than continuing to talk about what happened against the Ravens. I'll just put it that way. So on that note, thanks everybody for stopping by, for being active in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share if you know anybody else who likes this type of content, and turn those notifications on so that when I go live tomorrow, you can join in and we can do this all again. So on that note, I need to get to bed. This is Jazz Monet with Bitches Love Sports. Obviously tired. Thanks for joining. I'm out.